Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday, October 16th, Town of Scarborough meeting. If you could all join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
This is the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you take the roll, please?
Counselor Seither. Here. Counselor Cushing.
Here.
Counselor Shoup. Here. Counselor Katerina.
Here.
Counselor Hamel.
Here.
Counselor Anderson.
Here.
Chairman McGee.
Here. Thank you very much. Just for anyone viewing at home, this is a little bit different than our usual style of meetings. We are starting tonight officially at 5:30. We're doing a joint contract zone review with the planning board here. And then at 6:30, we have a hard stop. We are going to be going into an executive session. And then we'll be returning here for 7 p.m. and we'll continue on with the rest of the regular meeting. So a little different than usual, but here we are. Rachel, if you wouldn't mind doing a quick introduction of you and your planning board members.
Certainly. It's on. Oh, good. I'm Rachel Hendrickson. I'm the chair of the Scarborough Planning Board. With us, we have Jim Hebert and Ben Flanders. Online, we have Roger Beely. We have a couple of folks absent, but we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Autumn, welcome.
Thank you.
Are you kicking this one off for us?
I will. I'll give you a brief overview and then Larry Grondin the applicant will be presenting. So this is a joint public hearing between you all to discuss a contract amendment. It would be the second proposed amendment to the Larrabee Farms contract zone. The Larrabee Farms contract zone was created in 2006 and it established the district to use for wetland mitigation. And so we need to do a couple of things tonight. In the staff memo, you probably saw that there was an original date and then there was a second amendment and the original date was changed. We need to establish the completion date. And then we also have the opportunity, part of the land is ready for deeding over to the town. And so that is really positive and that can be an outcome of this. And then we also need to change the date for completion for the remaining property. And then also to clarify when that property, when the mitigation project will be done, but when the property will be released for use by the town through deed or easement. And that's really all I have. I think Larry will probably do a much better job of giving you the history on the project, what the mitigation really entails. And it's a really cool site. We've walked it and it's pretty exciting to be able to get this for the town.
Thank you. All right, we have applicant presentation.
Good evening. My name is Larry Grondin, president of RJ Grondin Sons. We're based out of Gorham. If you're not familiar with us, we're a heavy earth moving company. We actually did the site work for the building next door to us a handful of years ago. And we operate a number of pits and quarries throughout southern Maine and do a lot of highway work, DOT work, commercial site work, et cetera. So we'll be talking about the Larrabee Farm project tonight. Let me just bring this up real quick. So I'm sure many of you are not super familiar with this project, so I wanted to start by talking about the history, expand a little bit more on what Autumn had said. But she did say that this was started in '06. So just the first slide real quickly is showing it's showing the maps of already conserved land in the town. And so you see the red piece, that's our piece. And I'll get into the details, but so ultimately, when this project is done, the town will be the owner of this property. It'll be under conservation easement. And if you can see to the, I guess, southeast, it abuts town land that's already under conservation. So which it'll be a nice supplement to that. So just a description of the parcel. It's 337 acres. It's off the Beach Ridge Road. Let me just go back real quick to that first slide. So just to orient you, to the west is Beach Ridge Road. To the, I guess, northeast is 114. So I think everyone knows where we're at. So just wanted to point that out just in case. So on the property over 95 acres of existing wetlands, over a mile of frontage on the Nonsuch River and floodplain. And I'd already mentioned that it was next to the town land. And then even beyond that, there's another 92 acres of the Nonsuch Land Trust. So historically, this large piece of land was used for farming way back in the day, but more recently, and I don't know when mineral extraction started, but 70s or 80s, I'm sure there's somebody here that can give us a little more light on that. But when we looked at the land, a lot of it was used for sand extraction. And it really wasn't properly reclaimed and it was just sitting vacant. There was nothing going on there. So what we wanted to do is something very different. This is a very unique project, hence the contract zone. So yes, it was continued to be mineral extraction, but because of the hydrology in the area and with development, obviously very vibrant in southern Maine, there's a lot of wetlands impacts because a lot of the good land is gone. So when a developer, so Cabela's, for example, that big development, they had wetlands impacts. So you can so one of the things they have to do is compensate for that. So projects like this can enable them to fill in wetlands at their project and then somewhere nearby compensate for them. So that's really the premise of this project. Yes, it was for mineral extraction, but the opposite of that is, okay, you dig all the dirt out and you just grow some grass and put some houses on it. So we're doing kind of the exact opposite. We're still gonna reclaim it, make it look nice, but it's gonna be in conservation forever. So just to explain the project, how it's progressed, I'll skip this map for a minute. So I like just to do a timeline, and I think it'll help show the progression of the project. So 06, we started, immediately got started. The DOT Gorham bypass had a large impact. So we created 16 acres of creation, but there was also upland preservation around it, as well as existing wetlands. We also created 4 vernal pools, which no one in the state had ever done. So that was pretty unique to that. Cabela's, which I gave an example for before, shortly thereafter in 07, we created 4.5 acres there with additional acreage around it, because that's really what Army Corps and DEP require. Then 08, we did the First Amendment. So basically, the premise was we'll shorten our time, but we want to be able to haul in materials to provide making aggregate easier for us and make it so, which we felt would go faster. So we made that amendment. And then another project, the Jetport, which was a large project. The creation was relatively small, but a lot of preservation acreage for project they were doing. Then some time went by. Settlers Green was our last and most current project. So we only created an acre of wetlands for that, for their compensation. And I'll just kind of point out, because I doubt you can really see it. So this green, this upper, that's the DOT project. And then this is the Jetport, this thing. And then this is the Cabela's piece. And then this is Settlers Green. And then this is also part of DOT, which I forgot to mention. So just to give you an idea. So not only were we operating a sand pit out of there, which was fairly short-lived, we also operated a small quarry. So that finished in 17. The rock just ran out. And then 18. So with all these projects, the individual projects, there's a 10-year monitoring period to ensure that the wetlands functions the way it's designed, but the plant life, there's certain standards for the plants to live, et cetera, et cetera. So years 1 through 5, there's a letter that goes to the town, to DEP, Army Corps of Engineers, and to make sure it's functioning the way it's designed. Because if it doesn't, we have to fix it. And then assuming it all's going well, you can skip a couple years, but it's a 10-year process from when you build it to, okay, we're done. You don't have to do any more. For example, if there's invasive species, we have to manage that, like blue strife and things like that. So started getting final sign-offs for the Cabela's project, the DOT project, Jetport, all in 19. In early 19, the winter of 19, we started getting rid of all of our daily operations there. And then coming to current, we're just awaiting final sign-off from Maine DEP and Army Corps for that last little project, Settlers Green, which is a project right here in town. So the impetus for tonight's meeting is a second amendment to codify, talking with the town, Tom and Autumn, and we're seeking to extend our contract to go to 2028. So we have one more big project that we'd like to finish. We've started designing it. And That's really the impetus. As far as all the other provisions in the original document, we're not seeking to change anything as far as all the stipulations, requirements. No matter what happens in the end, the town will end up with this land as originally agreed upon in 2006. And then we just would like a little bit more time to hopefully close it out with one final wetlands project. And if that doesn't happen in the next, 3 years, then we'll just do a traditional reclamation of the property and be done with the project. Did I miss anything, Autumn?
That's it.
Thank you very much. We have a pretty prescriptive process for this, so the next item on this is comments from the town staff on the project. So I don't know between Angela or Autumn, if there's anything you wanted to offer up in addition to what's already been presented.
No, I just want to reiterate that part of this amendment, we really want to make sure that the 130 plus or minus acres that is ready to be deeded to the town now, that's part of, that would be my recommendation, that be part of this final contract amendment. And that we have a clear outline for that 2028 for the completion, but again, that we want to know when the town would be able to receive that. I joke, but I'm not really kidding. I might not be here in 2038 working to monitor if it takes 10 years for that time. So just to make sure that we put that into the contract zone language as well.
And if I could just expand on that a little. So I brought up on to the map. So the green shaded area is what Autumn is referring to. That land, that's where all these projects have started and now finished. So there's no further requirements as far as, all the Army Corps and DEP things, everything's stabilized. We could do that sooner than later, so you could start enjoying the use of this land. The blue section is what we're just trying to carve that out and make this project smaller. As far as all the requirements, all stay the same. So the blue section is still, that's where we're looking to hopefully have one last project to close that out. And then if you look to the top where there's kind of an odd shaped piece, that's a piece that we gave to the town when this all started. In 06 or 07, I think is when it was actually executed. And that's an approximately 20 acre piece, which was part of the negotiation. Because I think long-term, I think the use, it's passive use. There's lots of restrictions. It's a conservation easement. You can't build on it. Well, you can on that 20 acre piece up top, but the blue and the green will, forever be preserved. And, I think just passive use is my understanding of what the town envisions long term.
Larry, can you tell them a little bit more about that as well? Because the Army Corps has restrictions on the land moving forward, just a little bit about what that might entail.
Yep.
There's trails existing out there now.
Yep.
And I know on our walk, there's some desire to probably expand, clean up, maintain those trails. And it sounds like all of that would be fine. I know we had also talked about, there's a section down there on the plan south by the Nonsuch that I'm not sure, is that going to be part of the active wetland creation section, or is it possible that through this process, the town could get some access through that to finish a loop? Would that be something that would be able to?
Short term, you mean?
Or in perpetuity until, but not deeded over, but just as access. I wonder if.
I mean, there's a large loop. I don't know if this will show it better. But in the upper right, there's that, it's a 16 acre creation, and there's basically a giant loop around that currently. And then, that's in the green shaded area. But I mean, if there's still operations going, we can't really have much activity in the blue shaded area.
Oh, okay, even by the river.
Yeah, maybe by the river. I
That's
guess
what
we'd have to look at that.
That's what we were specifically
Okay. Yeah.
thinking about.
And of course, there's a lot of frontage on the river, even in the green piece.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
Yeah, Larry, I just want to follow up a little further. So the green area is the 130 acres that you're poised and ready to deed.
Correct.
And I would
Yep.
repeat what Autumn said. I think that ought to be part of this. So we
Yes.
accomplish that
Yep.
sooner than later. Within that, you mentioned a 16-acre graded wetland that has a very defined trail around it. When we walked it, and I don't know if it's part of the green or it starts to meander over into the blue area, but there's a forested area
Mhm.
that I don't believe would be part of your reclamation. It happens to be part of that parcel, but
Yep.
I suspect it's out of your area that you work.
Right, there is a trail that goes from that area, which is
So
probably,
to the extent that that is meanders in and on or onto that blue area, perhaps could we negotiate even an easement in the interim until the deed actually happens, so we have some public access to it?
yeah, we can certainly entertain that and take a look at that and get into the details, yeah.
Thank you. And just last question, are there any ongoing responsibilities that the town needs to be aware of?
As far as the DEP and Army Corps, no. I mean, it's just it's still a conservation easement, but as far as the wetland mitigation project,
Unlike your
Yeah,
10-year
yeah.
monitoring period, we don't have any ongoing
Nope.
monitoring obligations.
nope,
Thank you.
nope, just your normal maintenance for whatever use you're gonna use, so.
Any other follow-up from staff comments at this stage? Angela, I know you're online. Can't tell if she has her hand up. No. Okay. All right, our next section here is comments from the members of the public. So if you'd like to speak on this topic, if you could just approach the podium.
Done it as staff and not as the public, but, oh, sorry, I'm half asleep. Todd Suva, Community Services. I just want to touch and we've walked this parcel. The existing loop is just under a mile that's already there. That is a pretty hard packed road that you use to move aggregate around. It's a spectacular piece of property. In this last budget, council awarded us $10,000 to work on that little green New Hampshire shaped parcel up top to get a single track connection into the main loop once this was deeded over. So that was part of our budget work this year as well. And then kind of make a trailhead up on the 114 side of things. So this has been a conversation since I've been here, and it's exciting to kind of see it coming to fruition because it's a beautiful piece of property with, educational opportunity as well as, passive recreation and, a lot of conservation value as well. So.
Yeah, just for reference, that access point off the Warm Road is on Larrabee Farms Road, which is almost directly opposite Running Hill Road, intersection of Running Hill and Warm.
Hi, my name is Mike Mason. I'm at Amanda Lane, which is off of Beach Ridge. I'm in a butter on part of the blue side there. And first, I just want to say thank you to Larry. We've coexisted for over 15 years, and he's been a great neighbor for us and the folks around us. So thank you. We've always been planning and have been very excited about, what this property could become. Again, we're on the blue side though, which is where a lot of the existing kind of, unimproved ad hoc trails are. So I'd be very interested to see kind of what the vision and the plans are for, if the green is what is being deeded over to the town right now, and I just heard access from 114. I think there would be a lot of interest to see how that would connect, what the long-term vision was for the blue side, if there would be access from Beach Ridge Road, if those trails would connect between the blue and the green, because like I said, that's where a lot of the existing access and recreation is occurring on that land. And if there's another project and it's delayed till 2038 before anything can be done there, we'd at least be interested to see like what the vision is there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? that, we're going to ask Mr. Grondin to come back up. The next section is a response or rebuttal from the applicant. So I don't know if you want to reply to anything you've just heard.
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
You're good? All right. The next is discussion among the members of the planning board and the town council, which may have questions posed to the applicant, staff, and the public. So with that, yes, Karen.
Sure, so this is a new process for me in regards to a contract zone, so I have a little questions about the monitoring periods. So the 130 acres that you want to deed now, is that the Cabela's lot?
It's all four projects that I've described, the Cabela's, Jetport, DOT, all of them.
And I don't know if you can pull up the timeline that you had, because I want to understand the monitoring period and how long. I understand that the state obliges you to monitor for certain things. And so what you said that even after the last project, you've made the deadline for monitoring, correct?
Yeah.
But then you suggested, but then you went on to say you want to do a third project after this meeting tonight. Yes.
One more, yeah,
And then what would be the monitoring period for that?
10 years.
So then we wouldn't be able to, you would be monitoring it for 10 years.
That's correct.
Okay. And I think that's where I'm trying to clarify what we're taking over. I don't want to be in a thing where suddenly we take over property and we have an invasive species and we took it over too early when it's really supposed to be on his watch.
Yeah.
So that
No,
was
the
just a
intent is not to
clarification.
push that onto you.
Right, yeah, okay. I
Good
think
question.
that was really the first question I had. For now.
Any other questions for the applicant on this? Counselor Hamel.
Yeah, this council, at least four of us, I think, have had prior contract zone amendment or application experience. But I'm kind of curious, of the timing, why this came together at this point, in a single action, evening, how was that decision arrived at to do it at this time?
Contract zone process and the contract zone amendment process is very clearly prescribed in chapter 405. So we're simply following the process that is in place.
No, I know the process is, but how did we decide it would be scheduled for this meeting rather than perhaps leaving it to to the next council? I'm not recommending that, but it does seem to me that that would have been a possibility as well.
It certainly could have been. Mr. Cronin was before the council perhaps 18 months ago. So this is something we've been frankly wanting to get scheduled back in front of you.
Mr. Grondin made application and paid the zoning fee, and so we put him on the first available joint meeting. And then we just put him in the queue for the scheduling.
The other question I had was, so then why is this likely going to be, it looks like it's going to be managed or the responsibility of the town? Wouldn't it also be the possibility for it to be owned and managed by the Scarborough Land Trust? How was that decision made?
Contract zone is with the town, and at least the initial contract zone and what we're proposing we continue with was for the town to be the recipient and take dedication of those lands. The town can choose to then deed it off to other entities if it wishes, but I think it's that simple. The contract zone is through and with the town.
I have two more questions. One is, will this count toward the 30 by 30 goal? And if so, how will it be quantified?
Most certainly it would count. Once we finalize the 30 by 30, what we're in the process right now of defining what open space, and then we also have a specific definition for conservation. I would envision that this would probably fall into a category towards conservation. This has been part of the fun part of that conversation is there's recreation lands, there's passive parks. This would probably be a passive use that would be completely quantified as 30 by 30.
Great, thanks. And then the other comment I'll make is that we tend to do these things piecemeal, where we look at a piece of property and we talk about its value, and obviously there are a lot of good reasons for doing this, so I don't have any particular issue with that. But it does seem that it would be, especially if we're going to be in the business of trying to understand the value of our entire portfolio and understand that how we are making headway toward the 30 by 30 goal, that we ought to at some point perhaps review the entire portfolio of our land and then view these individual decisions as an ad hoc, as part of that, rather than doing it the other way around. So I don't know if we'll ever do that, but it's a similar kind of thing, you know, understanding this is a big part of our balance sheet. We ought to really understand the full value of it and be looking at it from the perspective of the, you know, of it being a public asset, you know, and then trying to understand these individual decisions as part of that. But I think this is a worthy project, certainly a lot of work that's been done on it, and seems like we followed it, you know, book, line and verse. So I don't see any other issue with it.
Any other discussion amongst the council or planning board?
I actually have a question. Could you
Counselor
put the map back up? I'm sorry. I just want to be really clear about like which portions we would be acting on now versus which portions would remain under your mandatory observance.
Doesn't take me a minute, because I'll have to log back.
Oh, it's also in our packet.
Yep.
It's the second attachment, I believe.
And that's fine, Autumn, if you, since we're all baselined with the colors, like if we could just say like the green portion.
So
The proposal is, and if we could just boil it down, like the proposal is for the green portion to be deeded to the town effective.
As part of the contract,
Right.
this contract zone approval, we would recommend that we accomplish that dedication as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a two-step thing. To start with that process, right? And then, and as well as change the date for the blue section.
Yeah, I don't know why it needs to be two-step. I
Well,
think for my part, I'll insist.
kind of
that-
doing two things at the same time.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Parallel.
Parallel.
Yes.
Yeah.
You sign, we sign.
And then the blue section is the area that they intend to reclaim and create additional wetlands. If they're not able to, or they don't want to by 2028, this goes away and that land gets deeded to us
Yep.
sooner without delay.
Correct.
Okay, so there's potential for a proposed project now that could push that out to 2038. But if things changed and the project didn't come to fruition, then there's a chance that that parcel would be deeded to us sooner.
As far as the project being built out or reclaimed, one or the other,
Okay,
we're shooting for 28. The only thing that when we were discussing with town staff was, okay, well, we're on the hook for 10 years. How does that work? You know, it's our responsibility, but you want to use it. So that was one of our, and I think that's
Yeah.
just one of the
and I
main,
think you're driving right to.
I think
to
that's the
my
main
question, too.
point that
Yeah.
really needs to really be negotiated and talked about.
Okay. And then just for clarity, the square portion up top that is kind of yellowish,
Yep.
We
That you already.
that's what we already own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without restriction.
Without restriction.
That's correct.
Okay.
I believe that had been generally referenced as a possible school
You
site
could put a school on it. Yeah.
Mhm.
back in 2016, whether we use it for that purpose is our decision.
Right.
Okay. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
And one parting thought, I think that shape is actually more like Idaho than.
Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, I'm getting more confused. So just what is it that we need to make a decision on? Is it?
So tonight we're telling them that they can kind of get a thumbs up, continue on in the process. Thumbs down, you should just stop now. You're wasting everyone's time. Or you should continue with these conditions.
And I guess what's with these conditions, what is it that we need to get clear on? Is it that we want this conveyed by 2028 if they don't have a project and we're comfortable going longer if something comes up in that period that would convey it by 2038 at the latest?
Yes. Yes, initially we were pushing Larry we wanted to get access and ownership of the property sooner than later, but once we had a full appreciation for the monitoring responsibilities, I didn't want to assume that. And I think understandably, Larry's concerned about public access and invasives and whatever the public might do to the property that will limit his abilities to execute. So I think having very clear understanding in writing in this amendment will be helpful for future staff and councils picking this up at some point down the road and understanding it.
Yeah. So if it is conveyed by 2028 because there's no project, is there anything else that we would want to ask of the applicant? As was mentioned, like the Beach Ridge Road access or the connectivity that you guys are looking for in the blue area, like, is there anything that we would request?
So if the final mitigation project wasn't built because we just didn't have, someone to do it, we would just reclaim it as a normal reclamation of a pit, which you just have to revegetate it. So essentially, it would be more or less a field, essentially.
And that's what you would convey by 2028?
So if we didn't build the wetlands, then there's, once we revegetate it, we're done. There's no 10-year monitoring or anything. It's only when you create a wetlands that it's so
Okay.
involved. So yes, if we build no project by then, we just come the winter of 28, 27, 28, we start making it green and looking pretty, and we can start doing this, giving that sooner. So it's two different things. So we don't know if, we're confident there'll be a build out. So much that we've started some of the design work. We have, Sebago Technics here with us tonight because I didn't think we'd get too much into the weeds as far as design stuff, but, it's really to, do the 130 acres because it is 100% done, monitoring's done, and then change the date.
Just if I could respond to Mr. Mason, I think's comment, we don't have the long-term plan, but I would fully expect that we would be looking to have access equally off Beach Ridge Road. I mean, that is a major road that you're running, heavy, large equipment through, so it's kind of ready-made for that. We will be undertaking a trailhead facility off Gorham Road, this year. So one thing we could talk to the applicant about is perhaps as part of the reclamation or the project is creating, before they leave, creating a bit of a trailhead that we could use as a parking area, accessed off Beach Ridge Road at a, location and details to be determined.
And then, also to your point and to answer Mr. Mason's question, there is already a trail that connects the blue and the green. So, and then I have heard through town conversations that the big picture is to connect all of this. There's no map with lines on it, saying exactly what that looks like, but from what I've heard from your staff that's the vision.
I suspect we'd undertake maybe a master plan to really plan out how the entire parcel, there's a lot of acreage here, really intriguing terrain and some great opportunity for passive, and depending on what state the properties are deeded to us, if we have the ability, maybe we could look for active recreation if that's allowed.
Rachel.
Yeah, that leads to the question that I had. I had a question about the amount of uplands that there are. Is so that, we would have a sense of what could be more than the passive. So that if the blue is deeded over to the town in 2 years, what would it get? What would it get?
There are
for
uplands as
upland?
well. So
Even
even.
and forest and old growth, if there is any old growth there.
Yes, there is. And I don't have those numbers with me right at my fingertips, but we do have that breakdown on what's left, what is already wet, what is, forested or i.e., uplands. So at the next meeting, I can give you those figures.
But should this come back to the planning board,
It will.
it's right at some point, that would be very helpful for us to have.
You'll unfortunately see me a couple times. So
We
I
have
apologize
seen, we
in
have seen
advance.
you before, and familiar with this project and very appreciative of what's going on there.
Thank you.
I just want to be clear, though, Rachel asked a very important question. In spite of the fact that there are uplands that would otherwise be able to be developed, it's my understanding that the conservation easement will not allow that.
Correct.
So
But would it allow, let's say, a recreational field there?
likely not.
Can I ask, Larry, worst case scenario for you, if you didn't end up getting the project to create more wetlands and you didn't would it still fall under the same conservation easement language? So no matter what, okay, that's good.
Yep.
So I don't think, I think what we established at our visit, that the establishment of a field is not permitted, right?
Well, if we don't build a project, then particularly, and you can see where there's still unreclaimed area in the blue area, that, say the upper half of that, this area right here. I mean, it wouldn't be a perfect ball field, but it would essentially be pretty flat if it's just a traditional reclamation.
So that conservation easement language would allow for that.
As long as it's, so as far as my requirements is operating a pit and a quarry, it's just gotta be revegetated. So,
But that's the worst case for you. The best case for you is that you
Correct.
get the project and you complete it by 2028, and it's a 10-year monitoring cycle, and the town receives it in 2038.
I think we gotta clarify that in this amendment to say that.
We'll have two different,
Right, if in the event
right,
the area is not,
two different outcomes.
Yes.
Yeah,
the property will still be deeded, but without conservation easement.
no,
It'll still have-
has the conservation easement.
I guess we can talk further. I'm
Well-
not sure why it needs to have that. But so long as we have additional opportunities for active recreation.
yeah.
Is just for clarity for that language, so do you need to hold on, is 2026 your date for nothing's gonna happen? And then I can deed it over, because it takes some time to finish the project, so I'm kind of backing out of 2028 if that's your be complete date.
Yeah,
Your worst
if,
case
if
scenario
that
date
happens,
is
we would
probably-
do a lot of the prep work in 27
Okay.
and then be ready to go in 28.
So
Yeah.
if I were the attorney writing it, would be whereas if no mitigation project was scheduled by 12/31/2026, then.
I would probably go a little later than that,
Okay,
but,
okay, that's why.
but yes.
Something like that, and then
Yes.
you'd have until 12/31/28 to,
Mhm.
okay.
Yes, yeah, yep.
Next portion is the planning board discussion about the land use implications proposed by the contract zone amendment.
Yeah, I believe we've kind of been discussing them right now, in terms of what's the possibility there in terms of active or passive recreation. Is the off-color green included in the conservation easement?
It is not.
It is not, okay. Would that be used as the access to the regular green now? Let's say once it's put over. Okay, so these are the questions that I had in terms of the land use, how to get to it, what would be allowed. If it is under conservation, that's actually limits a lot of what the land use can be. I would note in general that the access to the Nonsuch River is wonderful. The work that the Land Trust has been doing to really preserve the shorelands of the Nonsuch River is outstanding, and a lot of the recent purchases or donations from developers have added to the preservation of the shoreline. So that's extremely important, as well as the preservation of the Nonsuch in what is now the Blue District. So even if that is returned to the town in 4 years, we would want to really take a hard look at how that part of that land was used and preserved. It is a very important part of this town. Ben or Jim?
Yeah, I guess a lot of my questions were sort of answered already. Want to make sure that we confirm the trail restrictions, the Army Corps of Engineers, so that the town is clear on what they're able to do with it in the future. And it sounded like the applicant was amenable for the town to obtain some kind of easement for access off of Beach Ridge Road for something that isn't impacted by the day-to-day operations and the remaining blue portion.
I don't think it'd be from Beach Ridge, because that's right through the area that's
So that
It'll
would
be actively under
It would just be
construction. It would be the area that naturally and logically abuts the green
Understood.
parcel.
So you would want the town would be looking for an easement for access just all along the shoreline of Nutsuch.
Yeah, for instance, there's a forested area and kind of a fairly steep ravine that is a
Mhm.
really good kind of natural dividing line. I'm presuming that on the green side of that, I'll say, is not an area that you're gonna be reclaiming. It's
already reclaimed.
heavily forested.
Yes, yeah.
There's a natural sort of trail connection loop that sort of goes back and forth about the blue and green, I think,
Gotcha,
and that's
okay.
probably the part that we were.
Yeah, so that link is basically already built. So
Right.
when we built the Jetport piece, because that's basically adjacent to the first one we did, which was the largest part of the green area. We built that knowing that it's gonna be hard to get back there. And knowing that very likely that this would all just be a system. So
Awesome.
that connection is basically already done,
Great.
so.
Okay, thank you. Ben, and then I don't know if Roger has his hand up, so, but Ben.
Just got a couple quick things. One, I mean, I think one of the questions we have to answer is, does the land use meet what it's intended by the contract zone? And obviously my opinion is that it does, and I think everyone's is that as well. And my main question, just briefly, is theoretically, it doesn't look like it's gonna happen, but if this were to be denied, what would be your deadline for turning over all the land to the town? Is it this year? Is it next year? Just so I understand like what the.
I don't know
stakes
the
are.
answer to that.
So you're asking for extension to 2028, right? What are you extending from?
Right. So that's the only provision that's really not in compliance, is we're technically out of date.
You're already out of date.
Yeah.
I see. Okay,
He's out of date for completion. The original contract zone did not contemplate that there's a completion and a monitoring period. And that's what I want to make sure this contract zone contemplates. There's a completion and that's great, but it doesn't mean we get it yet. And that is kind of the part that's a little.
And, we'll talk further through with, we have a wetland specialist. We can kind of get his opinion on the 10-year monitoring thing. Can there be some use? I don't know. That's really the only, in my mind, the stickiest point is that if we do build a project, how does that work with the blue piece? Because of monitoring.
I think we'll all be looking at.
Because
making
worst
sure-
case scenario, there's all kinds of invasives that come in because of just people walking around. I don't know, maybe I'm just overreacting, but I mean, it's something that we have to consider. Because we're on the hook if it happens.
That's what we'll be looking at, now that we've had this meeting, making sure everything's more Ts are crossed and Is are dotted, the next round, so.
That's
Sounds
good
good.
intent. And we're getting close to the end of the project either way. So yes, agreed.
I think I'm all set.
Thank you. Roger, did you have anything to add?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, actually, I think I think there's some opportunities with this, but there's still some areas of, question. But it seems to me that the staff has a pretty good handle on this whole project. And, so I think the applicant, is, showing good faith in what they're doing and everything, so I'm pretty pleased with the way it's going so far, so that's all I really have to say.
Thanks, Roger. So the next item on here is a preliminary town council discussion of contract zoning amendment. And just so you know where we're headed with this, the last part of this is the joint planning board town council meeting may be continued from time to time by vote. Town council, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong part. At the conclusion of the discussion, the town council shall by vote advise the applicant, 1, to withdraw the request for the contract zoning, 2, to continue the process, the request for contract zoning with or without modifications suggested by the council, or 3, revise and resubmit the application for contract zoning under section, the vote of the town council.
Technical
Did
industry term.
You got all that, right? The vote of the town council shall constitute direction from the town council to the applicant as how to proceed, but shall not be binding. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. We're just giving some general guidance one way or another. So anyone want to start that discussion amongst council? Council Shoot.
I mean, from the discussion that I've heard, I think the application's fine. I think we just have to nail down what the amendment is going to say specifically in regards to monitoring and the extension. I don't think a refiling of an application, I don't think there's any interest to deny it tonight. So I think option 2, which was to go with the application and then give specific direction for the amendment.
Yes, Council Cushing.
I agree with Councilor Shu.
Thank you. Saw a lot of nodding heads there. So I think you kind of summarized it. It sounds to me like, I mean, we could take the vote, but I think we're there. You know, we need more discussions about some of the more specific details of the transaction. But other than that, you're in the right direction. So with that,
For what it's worth, I'd like to extend an opportunity for anyone who's interested in getting on the property. It really doesn't do it justice looking at a map. It's really quite special. And the interplay between the green and the blue, I think, is best kind of appreciated in the field. So if anyone's interested, I'm pleased to arrange that.
Yep, we're happy to give a tour.
Yeah, before it comes back before us.
Sure.
And the next step, I think it would be good for the council to have that opportunity.
Is there hunting on that land?
Yep, we allow hunting on all our land.
After hunting.
if you go out this time of year. Yeah. All right, with that,
Chairman
I'll take a,
Maggie,
yes,
did you have a motion on the floor?
that's what I was just about to ask for. Thanks. I'll take a motion to recommend that the applicant continue the process and work with staff to make the modifications discussed this evening.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor, Councilor Hamel.
One comment as we're moving forward, I know there's other action here, but I think it would just make sense for us to, try to keep in mind the option of, letting it just return naturally versus trying to create trails and interconnect them everywhere, especially if this is going to be, a town expense versus a land trust expense. So I just ask that we keep an eye on that.
Any other comment? All in favor? Opposed? So that is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Planning Board, thank you for joining us this evening. Autumn, excellent job as always. With that, we do have an executive session scheduled for 6:30. Recommend that we just take a recess up until that time, or do you want to move?
I think you need a motion to go into executive session.
Okay.
And I think they're all prepared with a message that will say we have a meeting at recess. We'll resume at 7.
Perfect. All right. Could I have a motion to move into executive session, please?
So moved.
Is there
Second?
second discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Welcome back, everyone. We are actually already in session. We've done the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry, most of you had missed that. We are now on to the minutes of the October 2nd, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Chairman McGee, you skipped general public comments.
Oh, under item 4.
We skipped it earlier, didn't we?
You're looking on.
Yeah.
Right.
You have the wrong one?
I'm online. That's what I'm looking at. Sorry. Thank you. We'll go to general public comments. If you are here to speak on a topic that is not on our agenda this evening, please approach the podium. You get 3 minutes. Be respectful. Direct all questions to the chair. We'll do our best to answer anything you can bring up. Ms. O'Brien, welcome.
Good evening. I'm speaking now to the issue of odor because I know that's not on the agenda. First of all, I'd like to respond and clarify a couple things that were mentioned at the last council meeting. The building behind us certainly has been a cannabis business for the last 9 years. For the first 7 of those years, it was run by another business owner other than the current one. We did not know they were there, which is exactly my point. We never had a problem with odor from them. From what we understand, they had a state-of-the-art filtration system, hence we never knew they were there. Coastal Remedies has been operating since August of 2022. It's obvious to us that this current filtration system is not up to the standards of the previous one. It was mentioned by Attorney Cohen that there were 2 complaints within 24 hours. Yes, we did call twice within 24 hours on the 23rd and 24th of September. But we only called the second time because we weren't sure if the first call the evening before was verified. And because of that, we called again the next morning because it was still a strong odor. We weren't trying to pull one over on anyone. There have been several instances when we haven't called because the smell was not as strong. It was also stated at the last town council meeting by Attorney Cohen that Mr. McNeil had addressed the odor issue after the last verified complaint. When my husband and I got home from the last meeting, there was no mistaking the strong odor as we got out of our cars. We called the police department and they responded in half an hour. Upon arrival, there was no mistaking how strong it was. We only recently learned that the town council is not notified or verified of verified odor complaints. This was the second verified complaint. It was also stated by Attorney Cohen that she read the police reports and that things being said to the police about her client were, and I quote, quite honestly concerning and disturbing. You will all have copies of those police reports by the end of the evening to see for yourself what an exaggeration that statement was. I'm really tired of blame and insults being thrown our way when all we are trying to do is live our lives without the intrusiveness of this stink smell in our home, garage, and yard. With all the time and effort spent pointing fingers in every direction but themselves, it seems like all that time and effort would be better spent fixing the issue of the odor itself. There is an odor ordinance in effect, and we are not the ones breaking it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Welcome, Mr. Hayes.
Richard Hayes, Martin Avenue. Just a couple of quick comments. The traffic lights on Route 1. If they are smart lights, they need to go back to school. I don't know. I believe that I heard some time ago that in early July, they were all going to be synchronized and everything was set. I hope that's not the case because I think Route 1 is a mess. Secondly, there's been a lot of talk of the marsh and it being crowded by development. And surprised me, not too long ago on Pine Point Road, there's a new road being built. And I understand that there are 9 houses going to be built. I haven't driven on the road, but I go by it a lot. And if there are 9 houses going in there, if you open your window, you're going to be able to shake your hand with your neighbors. It also is on the edge of the marsh. I don't understand what we're doing. We say on one hand, we're concerned about growth, we're concerned about the marsh, we're concerned about flooding, and then we continue to build. I'm a simple person, but I don't understand why there are 9 houses being built on the edge of the marsh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
If it pleases the council, while the other speaker comes up, I'll just speak to the second question Mr. Hayes mentioned. I am aware that that new subdivision is a conservation subdivision. The density and lot sizes are smaller in exchange for larger buffer to the marsh. So I think that is a great example of actually a project that is very mindful of that resource and is protecting it as best it can.
Ms. Cohen, welcome.
Good evening. I did not intend to speak, but I do have some information that may be helpful to the O'Briens. First, I want to congratulate Jean Marie and wish her all the best. You look amazing in that crown. Really, not everyone can pull that off. On the evening of October 2nd, there was equipment, odor mitigation equipment and work being done in the facility at 3 Commercial. So it was not a surprise to me to hear that there was an odor complaint that came out that night because there was traffic in and out of the building. We submitted a response to the first set of complaints. I hope that that will be shared with the O'Briens because a lot of time and money was spent, hopefully to remediate the issues at that facility once and for all. I apologize if anything I said was insulting to the O'Briens. I was referring to one specific comment that you will see in the police report. But other than that, we have taken steps at the facility that we hope will be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Kuznarak. I live on Route 114 in Scarborough. Let's forget about town business for a minute and talk about communism. There are many people in this country who will stand by and support communism. I grew up in a post-World War II community in New Jersey that had deep roots in traditional American values. Our families still had vivid memories of the war and how a communist regime destroyed people and countries. Back in the 1970s, when they taught real American history in our schools, the subject of communism came up. All I knew is that there was very, very bad, and I wanted to cover my ears. But we were taught never to believe in the evil ways of communism. But today, communism is everywhere in this country, and a lot of us have not held on to our traditional American values. I will give you an example of where communism is right now in America. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, candidates for the Democrat Party that are running for president and vice president. Kamala has deep knowledge of Marxism through her father, Donald Harris, a Marxist economics professor at Stanford University and educated at Berkeley, and has passed on his Marxism beliefs to his daughter. Have you ever listened to her campaign speeches? There is a common phrase she uses. That phrase is, what can be unburdened by what has been. This quote means dismantling the old to rebuild a new social order. This means she will take down the US Constitution and the American way of life. She has said this quote many times, and the sound bites are out there. This quote comes from the Communist Manifesto, a popular publication by Karl Marx. So Kamala is quoting the Communist Manifesto as she campaigns to be president of the United States.
Ms. Kuzniak, I'm going to quickly interject real quick. I'm sorry if I messed up your last name. Is it Kuzniak?
Kuznarak, yeah.
Kuznarak, I'm sorry. Is there an applicability to the local municipality here? Anything that this council could take action on, or a relatable issue that you wanted to kind of bring this home with? Because that's really the foundation of our general public. Its comments is what we as a council can really deal with here in our community.
I thought this was about free speech, public comment.
We do, but this is your public comment period, but we do ask that it is limited to what the town can actually discuss and take action on. The local.
This is an election cycle. So I'm just giving people a choice. That's all I'm doing.
No, I'd just like you
Is there
to
a
somehow
problem with
relate it, like you to somehow relate it to what maybe we can deal with here locally.
I think this is for the general public, not for the council. And I believe that these 3 minutes are for anyone who has an issue or wants to just basically comment. And I believe that this election cycle is critical.
So if you wanted to tie this into the municipal elections that are coming up, I would say that your statements were very appropriate.
Thank you. Can I continue?
You may.
Thank you. Okay. So let's not forget that Kamala is already vice president, and we see the condition our country is in. If she gets into the presidency, she will shred the US Constitution. Remember how fast we were locked down when the pandemic hit in 2020? That is how fast she will do it. Let's talk about Tim Walz. He was the governor of Minnesota back in 2021 when the city of Minneapolis burned to the ground from protests. Remember that Tim Walz delayed calling in the National Guard. He never apologized for the damage and never tried to stop it. Law enforcement was told to stand down. That is how Tim Walz operates. He turned his back on the people of Minnesota. So how are you going to vote on November 5th? Are you going to vote for a United States constitutional republic? Or are you going to vote for a communist manifesto? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McKee, welcome.
Hello. I have to say, I disagree with every word that was just said, but that's the beauty of a democracy. And that we have freedom of speech, and that's fine. But I have to say, I totally disagree with every word. Now, I need to ask you, are we going to be discussing, or are you going to be discussing the zoning for the Downs? Change of zoning in the Downs in the agenda tonight? Yeah, I think there's a change in the agenda, and I just wondered if that was going to be for the Downs. They had talked about. Yeah.
The planning, the proposed chapter 405. Yeah, it's farm stands, not the down.
Oh, so it's not?
No.
Oh, so can I talk?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, first of all, I cannot believe that you guys can go through this ordinance. It's unbelievable. I tried, but I didn't do too well. And so I just thought I'd say a few things, and I'd put it in the words of the zoning. Whereas, in my opinion, the Downs Crossroads has enjoyed many concessions, including 13 exceptions to the previous GMO. Whereas the Downs and Crossroads are asking for a zoning change to accommodate food trucks in the open space around commercial building plans. And whereas the Downs Crossroads state that the food trucks will be an amenity for the town along with other future amenities that they spoke of. Now, therefore, I strongly advise and hope that the council and planning board do not change any zoning to once again accommodate this huge development that has changed Scarborough forever. And the aforementioned amenities will benefit the Downs and Crossroads. So, therefore, I caution the council and planning board to be very wary of wolves in sheep clothing. Thank you very much. And I just want to ask, are the three councilors, you have one more council meeting?
Councilor Katarina's last meeting is tonight.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry.
Councilor Hamlin.
Notice my see my
I know, I wondered. I thought it was Halloween.
That too. Oh, I love it.
Welcome.
Hello. My name is Matthew Stuckey from 8 Pleasant Ave. That's a tough act to follow. This is my first time speaking here. I've come to the last 2 town council meetings. I'm a real recent resident. And after those meetings, I decided that I wanted to deep dive the past at least 6 months of YouTube recordings of all these meetings and the different committees and such. And I just want to share my gratitude for all of you and this community and how like heartfelt I can tell you all are and how you work together even through conflict and challenges, and that those conflict and challenges really show how much you care. And the fact that you return together afterward shows that you can work together well and represent our town well. And I just am really grateful for that. And I want to thank the outgoing members for all you've done for the town. And I'm excited to continue to engage with the members who'll still be here and the ones to come. And yeah, this also extends to all the other municipal people that I've interacted with so far. from the town manager to the assessor and the YouTube tech person. And yeah, so I really just wanted to express my gratitude and my excitement to engage in this community and grow into this community. Thank you.
Thank you. And God bless you for watching all those videos. Any comments online, Liam? No? All right, seeing no further public comment, I'm going to close public comments. Next item is the minutes from October 2nd, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Again, sure that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Any adjustments to the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. Treasurer's warrants were signed earlier this evening, and now we're on to the manager's report. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is a first for me in my career, hearing someone has binge watched our council meeting. But thank you for getting engaged. I'd like to switch things up a bit. We've had an interesting week of things that I think are worthy of discussion, public disclosure, and discussion among the council. Allow me to go through a couple of housekeeping things first, however. Let's start with the election update. It's been extremely brisk starting this week. The early voting period started for in-person voting. Yesterday, for instance, we had a banner day, over 1,000 votes cast, which is, I think, breaks every record that we've ever held here. It also happened to be tax due date, and so it was very busy here. And just to appreciate, the revenue office up in the front of town hall here processed 1,684 transactions yesterday and brought in about $6.4 million. So extremely busy day. It was only after I got home and sat down that I realized that we're in a super moon situation, and that explains a lot of the craziness, I think. But with respect to the voting, as I said, early voting period is underway. This year, we are conducting that over public safety. It's working out quite well. The space was a bit cramped yesterday with the crowds, but today it moderated, and I think we'll be fine through the election cycle, it appears. But the flow works quite well, we think. We've also had very brisk voter registration. This is something that's been kind of reported widely nationwide. And since September 1, I think at this point, I'll conservatively estimate we're over 300 new registrations. So that's just another activity that just to pay attention to. So again, the early voting will occur normal business hours of the town. That's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are also adding an extra Saturday opportunity. It will be just 4 hours, 8 to noon on Saturday, October 26th. And as of right now, close of business today, we've issued 5,092 ballots, either cast or mailed, of which 2,511 have been returned. So about half have been returned. So again, no surprise. I think we all appreciated that we were in for a very busy election cycle, and those statistics certainly don't lie. I do have some comments on some ballot challenges we've had, but allow me just to move through a couple of other final things here. I want to just alert counselors, certainly those that are going to continue on past the election. We had a senior staff retreat, and one of the very productive discussion points was a strong interest on the part of my staff to engage with the council, ideally before you do your goals, so we can help maybe baseline and level set kind of what's on our agenda, what our capacity is. We think that would be helpful for us, and I hopefully helpful for you as before you sit down. So that's something as soon as the new council is seated and organized, we'll look to schedule sometime in early mid-December, is my hope. Council committee activity. Many of you are serving on either finance or ordinance. There are 2 matters from each of those groups, those committees that are coming forward at your next meeting. These really, I think, intend to close out and make late progress, but important progress toward council goals. So just be aware we've got some new items coming forward that will span over into the new council. And final housekeeping note would be the Pine Point Pier dedication in honor of Dave Corbeau was rescheduled, and it will occur this coming Monday, October 21st at 4 p.m. And certainly encourage anyone who's interested to stop by that event. So I'd like to speak to two ballot issues that we've been working through over the last week or so. The first related to a surprise we received over the weekend, last weekend, and that was our printer printed the ballots incorrectly. The error on the ballot was that the council candidates were not listed in alphabetical order, which is a matter of state law. Unfortunately, the printer printed off a prior proof and not the final one we approved. That presented some challenges since that was known to us early on Sunday morning, and early voting started Monday morning. And here we were without any town ballots or correct town ballots. So town staff was able to connect with our vendor, who incidentally is a state required and directed vendor, someone whom we worked with since 2013, and historically had pretty good success. This year, this cycle has been a bit more challenging in terms of just delays, in terms of providing information to them, waiting weeks in some cases for responses back. I think that in part had to put us in a position of not having much wiggle room, if you will, to correct any mistake, even if it was theirs. But to their credit, they readily acknowledged their fault, immediately went about the business of printing them, and by 10:30 Tuesday morning, we had 18,000 new town ballots. Unfortunately, what's happened in the meantime, since we were in possession of state ballots and cannot hold them once we have them, we were forced starting Monday morning to issue about 2,300 ballots to folks that had applied previously for early votes. And so we did that. And then, of course, through the course of Monday and then the morning of Tuesday, we had people show up and vote in person. So all told, we had about 3,000 ballots that had already been issued and some actually cast by that point. So we did immediately embark, and by I think noon on Wednesday, we had mailed out those town ballots to all 3,000 or so folks. So just as soon as we recovered from that event, we were notified by one of the council candidates that his middle initial was incorrect on the ballot, which is technically it's an error, and we considered what the consequences of that error are and what the remedies are. State law is prescriptive. Not surprisingly, the strong suggestion is to reprint ballots, a process we had just gone through literally the day before. Or another alternative would be to put corrective stickers on ballots. In either case, staff, certainly with consultation with town attorney and the Secretary of State's office, we were concerned with drawing undue attention to one candidate over another, and whether or not that would have undue either negative or positive influence on the election. And so our suggestion, and we did consult with members of town council on Friday afternoon, was to keep the ballot as it is printed, but to provide a clear public disclosure of that error, which we have done. That public notice is purposely generic in that it does not indicate exactly which candidate is in question. And if it pleases the council and the public, I'd like to read what that public statement says. It says, due to an administrative oversight, the middle initial for a candidate running for town council is printed incorrectly on the town ballot. The first and last names of all candidates on the ballot are otherwise correct, and no action is required from voters. So it's a terribly unfortunate situation. Staff takes full responsibility. It was our oversight, but we propose this as the best solution given the circumstances. That notice has been placed on our website. It went on the e-newsletter that went out Wednesday this week, or the 15th, whatever, Tuesday, I guess. We have it conspicuously posted in each voting booth at the polls. So we think we've covered the bases in that regard. So I want to use this opportunity to address the issue, certainly take questions if there are some from council. I have provided the council an initial after action report on both incidents, and I'm interested in your review and feedback in that regard. I'll just say that with respect to the first issue, in terms of guarding against similar problems in the future, I guess I have two thoughts and I'm open to suggestion. One, I'm hopeful the Secretary of State is open for feedback with her vendor and responsiveness. Anecdotally, we've heard from Portland and South Portland that they had similar experiences with that vendor this year. Nonetheless, so I'm hopeful the Secretary of State will take some feedback in that regard. The other thing that I'd like to engage the council, it's a bit of a longer range strategy, is perhaps considering some of the timeframes in your town charter for the nomination process. If we were able to grab a little more time for us once the ballots are certified, that would enable us to work with the vendor to have additional time that in the event there are mistakes, we have time to recover from those. So that's a bit of a longer range strategy, but that's certainly something that I think we ought to talk about. And I think it's come up in past charter commissions as well. With respect to the oversight on the part of staff with the incorrect name on the ballot, I propose a fairly simple and direct protocol, which would require the involvement of at least 3 staff members at various intervals of the process to check, recheck, and triple check. And we think we can establish systems to avoid this sort of occurrence in the future. So I profusely apologize for the oversight. Hopefully the damage is not so much. We do believe strongly that the intent of the voters should be clear in that there is no other registered voter with the same name in this town. Certainly there's no other person on the ballot, even remotely similar in name. We expect the intent of the voter should be fairly clear and certainly hope that's the case. So with that, myself and staff is more than capable of providing further input if you wish.
Thank you, Tom. Council members, do you have any follow-up questions or commentary on the after action? Yes, Councilor Hamel.
Yeah, I was just, I was part of the communications that was undertaken by the town manager and the assistant town manager. But I did have a question. And I know the second error is particularly troubling, especially following the issue of the order of the first, the first mistake, the printer mistake. The problem with that is that there's a tendency for people sometimes, if they don't know the candidates, to vote for the first name on the list. So what group were you in contact with in terms of this? Was it the Secretary of State's office who's responsible for this? What state agency is that?
If you could just be clear as to which error you're referring to, is it the alphabetical
the first
order?
error, the first error of the order.
We frankly didn't consult with anyone. That is clearly a state law requirement. Candidates must be listed in alphabetical order. And so that was a very simple one. We realized it was wrong and we moved swiftly to correct it.
Yeah, I won't speculate on other issues, but I hope that it seems like the staff responded as well as could be expected, given the issues and the timing. And I'm hopeful that that may not, create issues going forward.
Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, no, I just want to commend the staff for how quickly they responded to the first issue, especially with the communications to the public. I think to me, that was really good. I think I saw many places online and town, people were aware. So it was great how staff responded to that. And then I just appreciate the reflection, looking at ways for improvement for the future. So I think, when things like this happen, to me, it's about how you respond and then what you do, what you learn from it. And I feel like what you shared tonight, Tom, to me, checked those both boxes. And so now we can figure out how to do better next time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all. Lastly, I'd like to cede the remainder of my time to Norm Kildow. Norm is here to present the quarterly financial reports.
Thank you. Good evening.
Norm.
First, I want to start by tagging on to Tom's mention of the number of transactions yesterday at the collector's office. I'm very proud of the staff over there that managed a very difficult day professionally and with courtesy. So hopefully we will not have a 4-day weekend right before the day the taxes are due for a while. So So I just wanted to make that comment, to give kudos to the staff over there. So in your packet, Liam, I'd like to start with the executive summary there at the very end, if you don't mind. This is the obviously the first quarter of the fiscal year. So as I've mentioned to you before, revenues don't come in proportionately and expenditures don't go out the door proportionately, but a good first indicator is to divide the year by 1/4 and see how you're doing. So for the most part, we're doing fairly well. We recognize our property tax revenues when the levy's set. So being the first part of the year, we are very highly favorable in that realm. But from an overall basis, we're on the town, we're 29.5% spent for the year with actual expenditures and contract encumbrances for the entire year. And the schools is 25.5% spent on their expenditure. So we're pretty close to that 1/4 of the year metric. I've already mentioned our tax revenue. We're doing well on the excise front. Again, this year, we're ahead of where we thought we'd be at this time by almost $250,000. Using that 25% metric, we're ahead on state revenue, but that's one of those that's sporadic, so it'll even out over the year. And one thing that is not sporadic is our investment income. We're benefiting from the fact that the Fed continues to hold interest rates up, and our investment income is almost $164,000 ahead of where we estimated at this time. So all good things. Most departments are below budget on spending, with a few exceptions. One of the big areas is public works. Like I said, contract encumbrances, you do those at the first of the year for the entire year. So that's one of those things that will smooth out as the calendar progresses forward. Other areas in there is that because we have a quick turnaround to present to you guys at quarter end, some department allocations between town and school. The timing of those happened a little after I generate this report, so we are impacted by that. But again, those are things that are everyday business. They're not concerns that we should take a hard look at the budget and worry about. So if we could go back to page 1 of the schedule. Most of these I've talked about already. I just want to highlight that, like I said, Public Works, that 3.6369 contract encumbrance, that's the items you expect: the sand, the salt, the asphalt, the plowing. So, that's to be expected. That's really the only thing that I wanted to highlight on that page. And like I said, on page 2, I've hit the revenues mostly, the high points. We're, all I can say is we're on track. There's not much more to say. The packet is the standard packet that you all receive. Page 4 is the schedule that gives you a little more detail for the school, and they're again right on track. And page 5, we highlight selected revenues that we typically give you all, and those were mostly mentioned in the executive summary. So that's my report, such as it is, and I'll take questions.
Thank you, Norman. Questions? Well done.
And lastly, the audit is progressing very well. They've been here and gone, completed their field work, and we're pushing to have it done before Thanksgiving. We'll see if they come through for me.
Now you're showing off.
Yeah. I've been advised to never under promise and over deliver. While I have the floor, I do just want to acknowledge Counselor Katerina. Jean Marie, you know, in this business, I don't necessarily set out to make friends. It happens. And I'm pleased to say that over the course of time, we work very close together, and I really do consider you a friend in many respects. I've always admired your tenacity and your straight talk. I think that's such an admirable quality that you should never lose, and I don't think you ever will. I'm going to miss hearing you behind me with the Pledge of Allegiance, knowing when to start. You're always good about prompting that for us. And you never cease to amaze me with your references to all your past lives, Latin teacher, real estate agent, social worker. I'm sure there's others that your colleagues could recite, but in doing so, you always, I think, have a level of credibility to your comments because of your background. And I certainly do appreciate that. And it's going to be tough for the council. Someone's going to have to be quick on the draw to make the motion or second it. Jean Marie can always be counted on for that. So I wish you the best of luck at the county.
Thank you.
And please don't be a stranger.
Oh, I won't. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. So that does it for our town manager's report. We are on to order number 24089. It's a public hearing on the proposed amendments to chapter 610 piping plover ordinance. Who do we have introducing this? It's just a public hearing. I don't know if most of you might have been here last meeting, but there will be no formal action tonight. We're just here to hear from the public on this topic. Some recommendations came in last time. We heard some public comment last time. If you'd like to add anything, please approach the podium. Got 3 minutes, standard procedure. Ms. Bristol, start us off.
Thank you, Allison Bristol, Bayview Avenue. And I also would like to thank and congratulate Councilor Katerina. I think Tom said it best, so I won't repeat all the kudos, but I really appreciate your service and the time you've given to the council. Thank you so much. And I'm also not going to reiterate or verbatim the email I sent to everyone this afternoon, but I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. And first, I appreciated the fact that there was information in the newsletter yesterday, late yesterday afternoon on this, which doesn't really give the public much time to absorb it or form an opinion. Also, no mention of the fact that there is a beach management agreement between the town and the state and federal government, and that what's being put forward is more restrictive than what the state and federal guidelines require. So I think that that would be beneficial for the public to know. And I went back and watched the first read just to kind of remember all the public comments, and I was really taken aback. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I was, it was just curious to me that the stakeholders, the beach monitors who have brought this forward made the point that they weren't making the changes to the ordinance for enforcement. They were making it for educational purposes so they could educate the public. But an ordinance is the law. And if you're going to create an ordinance or rewrite an ordinance, then it should be something that is enforced, not just an educational tool to help people explain things. And I know at Higgins, and I'm going to use the Rangers as an example, the Rangers also don't have the ability to enforce their role. And Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, that their role is to educate. And to use as an example, we have a surfing ordinance, and there's always a lot of, contention during the summer about surfers being able to surf between the hours 11 and 5. And on not a great beach day, when there's not a lot of great beach goers, the police officers that are down there might, not notice that surfers are in the water, and everybody, it works for everybody. But that's the police department's job. That's not volunteer beach monitor's job. It's not the ranger's job. It's the police that should be able to make that determination. So I'm not in favor of changing an ordinance if it's not something that can be enforced. And just quickly, I'll reiterate, this summer at Higgins was a perfect example as to why restricting beachgoers from April to September is not a good idea, that the least terns did not nest at Higgins this summer, and the plovers had fledged by the end of July. So there was a full month of August that beachgoers and dog owners should have had the ability to utilize the beach. So in closing, I hope that if the goal is to align the ordinance with the animal control ordinance, which I can appreciate and understand, then I hope the council will consider the language that I sent earlier to kind of bifurcate it and not punish beachgoers who want to enjoy the beach and recreate. At the same time, they're limiting lengthening the dog restriction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bristol.
Good evening. My name is Francis Walsh. I'm beginning to feel like I live here, but I'll give my real address. It's Cape Elizabeth. I am one of the 80 or so volunteers in Scarborough. I am here again to support the amendments to the ordinance change, the ordinance that is 23 years old. It was amended 10 years ago. A lot of changes have occurred in 10 years. There have been a lot more people on the beaches in 10 years. And I would like to also address what Ms. Bristol just brought up. First of all, the ordinance, we feel, and by we, I mean the volunteers, not town-appointed committee, that made the amendments that were presented to Chapter 610. As far as the date goes, we're trying to make the entire amendment more consistent with what already exists in the town, namely the dog ordinance being Labor Day, the beach management agreement, which this ordinance amendment does not make the amendment or the ordinance any more restrictive than what the beach management agreement that exists, the 2024 to 2026 beach management agreement between IFW, the federal, the Audubon, and the town. We have dissected that beach management agreement many times. And we've done this, and I've done this because I also run a volunteer group at Crescent. So I need to understand what the beach management agreement says. We looked at the beach management agreement for Scarborough and tried to make amendments to the existing ordinance that were within the beach management agreement. We're trying to be consistent with what already exists. As far as enforcement goes, an ordinance, we look at an ordinance, and yes, I will say that education is our primary job. If we didn't educate people, you'd have people breaking the ordinance, the law. We look at the ordinance as being the last resort. We do not, and I can say this for every volunteer that I'm familiar with, I don't remember the last time that I used the word ordinance to a beachgoer. We have talked about habitat. We've talked about the migrating birds. We've talked about the coastal shorebirds. We've talked about the vision statement that is in the town comprehensive plan with regard to making the beaches a very special place for the ecosystem of the Scarborough beaches and the Scarborough Marsh. So the changes that have been made, the very minor changes, are consistent with what exists already in other agreements. I know there was a question last week about, or the last meeting, with regard to structures, and we've talked about that. We would like to discuss this further and maybe talk about just having something in the ordinance that asks people to leave the beaches as they were when they came. It's not being more restrictive to beach goers. We believe, and we try to make every effort to make sure that beachgoers and the piping plovers, the endangered birds, the terns are able to share the beaches with the beachgoers. We're not trying to restrict people from using the beach. We're trying to educate them to be mindful that there are endangered birds here, which is also protecting the town of Scarborough. So I don't know what more I need to say that we haven't already said. Educating the public helps keep the endangered birds from being inadvertently harmed. You know, we
Just want to let you know the
Sure.
3 minutes is up, so if you can try to bring this to a close. it'd be-
Sure.
Thanks.
So over the past year, the group of volunteers, again, the volunteers were not appointed. I think it's important to make it clear to the public that the group of people that worked on these very few amendments to the ordinance were not town-appointed volunteer people. We're just volunteers that, or a town-appointed group. I don't know what more we can say. I think we've said it all before. I think the amendments are we've answered every question that has come up. We've answered emails that have been sent in. I thank you again for your work, and I thank you for your work in hearing this amendment to this ordinance. I don't know how many times, but I know a lot of committees have heard it, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Glennis Chabot, 12 Houghton Street. Our goal in recommending changes to the piping plover ordinance is to protect the endangered birds, and I also feel to educate the beachgoers. As volunteers, we spend a lot of time on the beach in conversation with beachgoers. We are answering questions. How many eggs do they lay? When are they going to fledge? Do both adults sit on the eggs, etc.? And we also want to protect the public from the state and federal consequences that would result if they should harm a bird. So by spelling out some of the activities in the ordinance, this allows education. So for example, and I'll use the activity of running on the beach. Okay, people who run on the beach, the majority of them have earbuds and they're listening to music, they are listening to an audiobook, or they are conversing with a friend. And they don't hear the panic of the adult birds piping when a jogger is getting close to them or a runner, and they may not see the chicks. So having no running in the ordinance in the vicinity of the chicks allows the volunteers to engage in conversation with these runners. And so they can avoid possibly stepping on the chicks. Some states close beaches when they have piping plovers on their beaches. There is no reason to do that because the plovers and the beachgoers coexist very well on our Scarborough beaches. And having these changes in the ordinance, I think even will help that further along. You know, they get along very well. We have no problem with all the beachgoers, even when the beaches are very busy. So the revised ordinance updates definitions, dates, fines, and activities, and makes it more consistent with other town ordinances and also with the beach management agreement. So thank you very much for considering the changes. And I also want to give you a list of the addresses of the people who, for the emails that you received yesterday.
Thank you, Ms. Chabot. Any other public comments? Liam, anything online? I can't read the name. If you're online and wanted to speak, could you just put your hand back up, please? All right. Oh, there we go. Gretchen. Gretchen, can you hear us okay? Hello.
Hello,
Could you just give us your first and last name for the record?
Gretchen McKeska, 14 Houghton Street.
Thank you.
I'm also, I sent over an email today, so I'm going to just kind of recap that and, maybe provide a few more comments. I'm also speaking on behalf of accepting the proposed amendments to Chapter 610, the Piping Plover Ordinance. As my colleagues, I have also been a endangered bird monitor for 5 years. And the reason I'm saying endangered bird, we're actually expanding this to be piping plover and least terns, which both are endangered species in the state of Maine. I have lived at Higgins Beach since 1991, so spent countless hours on Higgins Beach and all the other beaches in the Scarborough system as a angler, a surfer, and more recently a endangered bird monitor. One of the things I looked into when thinking about what I was going to write in my email today is, okay, were there any plovers or any endangered birds on our beaches when I first arrived, over 30 years ago? No, there were not. Basically, there was none on Higgins Beach and one pair on one of the Scarborough beaches. And so the Audubon Society, with support from IFW, has done a wonderful job in getting the monitors together and making it so we now do have this growing population of endangered birds that are, really most of the people who are on the beach really love sharing the beach with the birds. They enjoy hearing about them, and they actually really, if they were here full time or lived at the beach, would probably even get involved in the program. The reason that we need the ordinance on the books is there are some that do not want to modify their behavior to make some more space for our bird friends. And in the case where we might have to call law enforcement, we have to have something that we can rely on. And right now, the 2014 ordinance really is not consistent with really even present day use of the beach. It doesn't talk about drones. I mean, drones are a real problem for the birds. There's a lot of inconsistencies with the other ordinances. Specifically, as you know, we revised the fireworks ordinance a few years ago at Higgins Beach. So there's no fireworks allowed on those couple days in the Higgins Beach area from Route 77 over. So there's a lot of inconsistencies. So us as monitors out there, many, many hours, we need something that really stands up to the few cases where we do kind of have to, really talk maybe a little bit more firmly, or if we have to, call in law enforcement. So I am in support of the proposed ordinances. The other thing I noted in my email is that Scarborough's grown nearly 25% since 2014. So we have, many more people on the beach, many more pets, and, many more people that are maybe more transient, because there is the people that are now doing Airbnbs as opposed to traditional long-term rentals. So there's just more and more pressure on the beach. The other thing I sent over that hopefully you'll
just to let you know, Ms. Muskaska, you're over your 3-minute time limit.
Okay. All right. Well,
to quickly wrap that up.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi, everyone. My name is Susan Ryu, and I live on Federal Way. And I've been volunteering with the Plover Project for almost 6 summers, pretty much every Tuesday. And I support the ordinance for lots of reasons. One of them are that I think it really contributes to the town quality of life. I've met many people on the beaches in the morning that have positive comments. And a lot of people have told me that they learn a lot about the birds from the volunteers. I share with people that I have a dog and that I love dogs, but I feel that there's space for both. It's a limited amount of time. And the birds really deserve our protection. And my understanding through the Audubon is that the numbers have really increased, which I think is a positive thing for our community, and I support the changes. I'd like to continue with supporting our birds. They need us, and they need someone to speak for them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts on that topic for us. One thing on the council side that we should probably have a quick discussion is when this comes back. Without any other specific direction from this council, it would tend to show up on our next meeting, which is November 6th. And I don't know if there was any sentiment to put more time in between now and the next official vote. Councilor Shu?
Yeah, well, I didn't know if you wanted it to go back to the Community Services Rec Advisory Board, or the Conservation Commission, because those, like, the Conservation Commission already has their agenda set for next week. Community Services Board doesn't meet till next month, so I don't know if the will from the last time was to send it back to those committees. I don't think it was, but if it was, that would delay the process even more substantially.
And my only thought was, I thought we received some good public comment and wanted just the opinion. And I don't know if that's something that could have been done by email, but whether or not some of those changes, which seem minor but could have impacts to like a beach going population, whether or not those, what the thoughts were of maybe those entities. And if that could be accomplished by email, great. If we think that they actually need to gather and discuss in more broader forum, then, but I just wanted feedback on some of those comments that have been provided from the public. That was my 2 cents. Councilor Cushing?
Yeah, generally, I'm fine with the ordinance, but I do think that Ms. Bristol makes good points, and I think it doesn't, it makes, I think her amendments should be considered somewhere along the line. I would prefer that the people who are spending the time machinating over all of this consider that, and maybe when this comes back to us, it'll come back to us amended to reflect those changes. Otherwise, my intent would be to propose that amendment, and we can vote it up or down. But I think it deserves consideration.
Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine since the e-news just went out to maybe not have it on the next meeting, but the one after that, to allow just that extra 2 weeks. The only concern I have is like, it's this council who started it, and then we'll have 3 new counselors. So is it better to just move it forward, ask the volunteers to consider some of the feedback they heard, and hopefully get some proposed amendments that we can debate for the next meeting? Again, for me personally, I am personally fine with it as is for the most part. So I think the notion of the timing, I think, is the one that Ms. Bristol put forward is worth debate to have that conversation. But in general, after meeting with the volunteers, because I met with some of them yesterday and they educated me a lot, I feel like I know a lot more looking at this than I did last time. And so, you know, I would be okay keeping it. But again, I hope that the press picks this up and like put something in the leader to make sure that, again, there's just more visibility of what's happening here. Because again, I think it's just important that the public is aware that there are changes coming. And while personally, I don't think they're substantive in terms of impact to recreation, I think it's just good for people to know that it's happening.
Councilor Hamel?
Yeah, this is, I won't be voting on this, okay, if there's no vote this evening. So, and I think that the questions that were raised.
You've got one more in you.
Do I get one more? But
One more.
but
Me and you,
I
we're
thought
back
it's
for one
just
more.
accepting, and then you swear in the new council, right? And then the new council
No.
takes everything.
Well, you'll be seated for the November 6th meeting.
Darn.
So, yeah,
I always wonder.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, okay, so I don't, let's just stay with that then for a moment, now that I got my calendar straight. The issue that I'm having with this is that this is all good work, worthy work, okay? Who's gonna take issue with, preserving habitat for these creatures, okay? I agree with all the points that were made as in terms of the inherent goodness of this, okay? And The issue is the practical aspect of this, and we keep running into this time and time again. We're running into it with cannabis, we're running into it with many others, is the enforceability of it, number one, and the wisdom of expanding it to the entire beach, number two. We haven't even had any significant discussion of short-term rentals, okay? I mean, and that has a big bearing on what's happening at the beach. You know, this beach this year in Pine Point was busier than ever. And I speak on behalf of the residents and I speak on behalf of the frequent walkers there. We become Surf City East. And the surfers are there and I welcome the surfers, even encourage them to stop by at my house. And, but this is, I don't think, ready for prime time. I really don't. I don't think it's been socialized. And I don't think that we have the ability to provide the proper support and reinforcement. So I think it needs more time and deliberation. I don't think it's going to be completed by the time I get to vote on it again, if there is another vote, you know, in my future here. So that's my feeling. I just think that it started in an area that is a private beach with public rights, and the rest of the beach from Ferry Beach, you know, to the end of Grand Beach, you know, in the middle of the beach on your way to the pier in Old Orchard Beach, is a very different story, much larger area. We're just coming off an enforcement decree where we had to do certain things that was a real challenge to enforce and to spend money on and to execute. So that's my 2 cents. So I figured I'd get it out there now, and maybe that will inform us from a procedural standpoint.
Councilor Cushing.
Yeah, again, I also want to say that I agree with Councilor Hamel. Made the point that I really broadly don't think that an ordinance is the right way to address that. And I think we've got 70, 80 volunteers who are addressing it. With that said, I know there are a lot of people who disagree with me. And so that's why I said earlier, I'd want to consider it with an amendment. What I feel strongly about, though, is that some of you may remember that you all, in the beginning of my first term here, apparently I was mixed up about what a plover actually is. And so we've been talking about these little birds for a long time. And so I think this is our work. We should finish it. It should go on the agenda one way or the other next meeting. I think that otherwise we've got 3 new people who are going to come in here. We've got to bring them up to speed, and that just seems not fair to the public. So for better or for worse, let's get her done.
Okay, that's fair feedback. Just to note though that we could end up in a 3-3 situation, but we'll figure that out too. So just because we'll be down 1 counselor is why I bring that up.
I can assure you I'll break whatever time.
So we will put this on for the November 6th agenda.
Yes, thank you.
Is that the 6th?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks for bearing with us there. Next, we have order number 24093. It's a public hearing and action on the following new request for a food handler's license for Deanne Patel, DBA Scarborough Payne Road Subs, Inc., which is Subway, located at 456 Payne Road. Dylan Patel, DBA Scarborough Route 1 Subs, Inc., Subway, located at 596 US Route 1. Catherine Jordan, DBA Kitty Lamb LLC, located at 15 Holly Street. Unit 110, Tori Cobb, DBA Claw Coffee Roasters LLC, located at 695 US Route 1. Randy Rhodes, DBA Pamo Lab, Inc., located at 23 Washington Ave, Unit 1, and Kelly McGovern and Willow Rasmussen, DBA Lois's Natural Marketplace, located at 152 US Route 1. Kristen, what you got?
So Lois's and Subway, they are currently licensed with food handler licenses. However, these are new owners which require new licenses. They're non-transferable. The other businesses are all new. I will note Pamo Labs is a cannabis manufacturer. They are going to be adding gummies to their production line, which would require the food handlers. These have all passed inspections and their certificate of occupancy. Those are just pending their food handler's license at this time.
Thank you very much. We do have an opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to speak on any of these, please approach the podium. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Is there a motion?
Second.
Discussion? Discussion, any of this? Seeing none. I'm sorry, Councilor Cushing.
I assume these are all complete, right?
All right.
I take that as a yes.
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? So that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Order number 24094, it's a public hearing and action on the following new request for a liquor license from Jossie Papa Nicolau, DBA Stack Scarborough, located at 183 US Route 1. Kristen.
So all initial liquor licenses have to have town council approval. I will say at this point, staff is recommending this item to be tabled. Deputy Chief Brennan has tried to reach out multiple times to the applicant and has even stopped by the location to complete some inspections. And those have not been completed at this time. And there's been no correspondence by the applicant. I have also reached out and did not hear back. So until accurate inspection has been completed and passed by Deputy Chief Brennan, we are requesting it to be tabled.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have opportunity for public comment on this item. If you'd like to speak, please approach podium. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Is there a motion to?
No, you got to put it on the floor first.
Is there a motion? Yes, I'm sorry. Motion to accept.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Now I have a motion to table.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
No discussion.
No discussion. I will learn that someday. By November 6th, I will understand this. All in favor of tabling this? Opposed? Okay, I show that as tabled 6-1. Thank you. Old business, none at this time. New business, order number 24095, which is first reading and refer to the planning board, the proposed amendments to chapter 405 zoning ordinance, section 13 residential zoning districts and section 9 performance standards. Welcome, Autumn.
Good evening. This is an amendment that was brought forward by an applicant in April of this year concerning farm stand uses and agricultural product stores. Our current ordinance allows for both uses in the RF district. The farm stand is a small 400 square foot structure to sell products that are manufactured on the farm or products that are not manufactured on the farm but are related. And the farm stand, the agricultural product store allows the same thing up to 1,000 square foot. What we do have in our ordinance, though, is an odd provision that the goods sold at the farm stand or the store have to be 51% made from the products from the actual farm. And so that means you could sell strawberry ice cream if 51% of the strawberries came from. And when I say it's a bit odd, there is a requirement to produce at the end of the year to the code enforcement officer a receipt or a statement, if you will, to that effect, that that's where your revenue came from. So this amendment would allow for a special exception process if that 51% can't be met. And really the thinking is that perhaps there is an agricultural farm use, but maybe they raise carrots, let's say. But it's a really quaint opportunity area. It's very nice, and they are someone wants to come and have a small 400 square foot little farm stand on there that sells some carrots, but also some other manufactured goods, maybe some candles, some crafts, those types of things, and some strawberries. But they can't meet the 51% with the carrots. And this would allow them a special exception process. They could go through the zoning board of appeals, state their case, show how they meet all of the other requirements in the ordinance for a special exception, and then they could get approval to do that. And so that's what this ordinance does. It allows a special exception process in the RF and then makes provision for that. This has gone through the Long Range Planning Committee in the summer in June, and then it went to Ordinance Committee in September. And then this would be the first reading. It will have to go to public hearing in front of planning board as well before second reading here and public hearing, excuse me. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Quick question. Cannabis is not part of an agricultural product under this ordinance?
It
that
is
correct?
not, no.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a question on, why wouldn't we just take the anomaly out of the zoning law, this 51 thing? In other words, it seems like we could spend a lot of time granting special exceptions. Why don't we just fix the law if the law needs fixing?
I like that idea as well. And it's possible that when it gets to planning board, sometimes those are the questions they often ask, like, why don't we just make this even easier? So.
Yeah, that'd be my preference. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have opportunity for public comment on this, so if you'd like to speak, please approach podium. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So we're into discussion. This is a referral to the planning board. I mean, perhaps to maybe Counselor Cushing's point, maybe, asking the planning board to see if the 51% is actually the right threshold and for something like this. Those farm stands are awesome. We've all probably stopped by one on the side of the road somewhere randomly. Whether or not you thought it was, all grown on their farm or not, you can find some really cool stuff there. Maple syrup from a farm that's not on the same road, that's highly traveled, but they're helping out a neighbor. So yeah, I wouldn't mind the planning board looking at something similar to that. I also don't want it to be, a pop-up retail center, which is what you try to guard against. All right. So there's a happy medium. We'll find it, hopefully. That would be my ask of the planning board. Counselor Katarina.
Well, plus the other effect of this is we want to try to preserve farms as much as we can. And farms, this is just something else that they can do. And as you say, it's got to go through a process. It's not like, oh, they can just pop up and sell anything, but at least helps with the farms, so.
Absolutely. Counselor Hamel.
Yeah, I agree with that point. I think that there aren't many farms left in Scarborough, right? I mean, I don't even know if there are any working farms left. Certainly, there used to be just farmers and clammers who lived in Scarborough. That was quite a while ago. But I'm in favor of trying to, let these folks operate in some fashion, and a percent or two off the majority of products. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. So I think it's reasonable.
Any other comments from the council? No? Okay. So this is a referral plan, but all in favor? Opposed? Sure, that is unanimous. We are now to order number 24096 as an act on the request to approve the appointments to the SBAC-2 committee. SBAC-2 is what we've been referring to it internally. We did miss again on the opportunity to call this the BLT. Building leadership team.
I've been trying to
Right.
get BLT to happen.
I know.
I missed my opportunity to rename the committee.
Twice now. Could have been BLT too.
Might be doing this again. You might have.
Do you want that toasted?
So with that, I guess I or April could probably do some chatting on this one. We've been working together with the school board, specifically their leadership as well. Diane, the superintendent, Tom has been part of that process. And this is really coming for anyone that's playing catch up and doesn't want to watch 6 months worth of YouTube videos. We had SBAC 1, which was our attempt at bringing more community involvement, kind of hitting the reset button on the school search. The school solution, honestly, was what is our solution, trying to bring the community together in one fell swoop, moving forward together. They came out with 4 recommendations at the end of their mission. So now we're on to the phase 2 of this mission, which is hiring consultants and engineers and getting the professionals involved, as well as still kind of keeping that community involvement in place. So as part of the discussions, we went through and tried to figure out how do you form a committee that is A, representative of the public, but B, is also nimble enough that we don't have 80 volunteers asking consultants, 80 different questions, because that can get expensive and time consuming and confusing. So what we landed on was this charge, which was the SBAC 2, comprised of a good amount of members of the first SBAC committee meeting. And the SBA, for anyone that hadn't followed along at this point, SBAC 1 was comprised of anyone in town that wanted to sign up. No restrictions. If you lived in Scarborough, you were welcome, and you could serve. So as we built this phase 2 committee, when we had a couple of acknowledgements of the efforts from phase 1, we decided that the subcommittee chairs, phase 1 broke down into subcommittees. Some of it was enrollment, some of it was building infrastructure, some of it was financial. We decided that those subcommittee chairs or their designee should have a seat at this SBAC 2 table. We wanted the leadership team, which was selected by that 80 people that showed up that first meeting. They selected a leadership team. We felt that it was appropriate to have them included in this, especially banning that knowledge, knowing where all of those things came from. Then we had some the solution phase that happened in phase 1. Solution phase was these 4 proposals that ended up getting worked and brought forward. We asked those committee chairs to serve on this committee as well, because you know what? We're going to ask the consultants to start looking at those 4 solutions, having them in the room that can clearly, identify what it is they discussed in their previous meetings at this SBAC 1 level would be helpful. We also then made a nod to the rest of the community saying, hey, just because you couldn't serve on SBAC 1 shouldn't preclude you from SBAC 2. So we have 3 residents selected at large from the community that had no prior involvement in the SBAC 1. And then 3 alternates. This shifted a little bit. I believe we ended up with 2 alternates and 4.
Yeah.
Yes. So just of note, 4 members from at large were selected because Peter Hayes, our SBAC 1 chair, declined to serve. And there, as part of that leadership team, there were only 4 members eligible to serve. So we've decided to take a member from the public and fill in a slot that way. So it got us to 23 members, long and short. Sorry for the long story there. We have 2 members of the town council will be part of this SBAC 2, and the 2 members of the Board of Education as well. So that is how we got here. And then what you have proposed before you is the appointment of 23 members of this community to start their phase 2 work. We are slated to begin on October 18th. No, that's a wrong date because that's 2 days from now.
It's Monday.
Monday the 20th? 21st, thank you. So on Monday, the 21st is really when we need these people to be seated, because we are on a pretty tight timeline in order to start hitting some goals, getting them up and running. And selecting the consultants is the first major step. And that's a process that we want them engaged in. So with that lengthy introduction, there is opportunity for public comment. If anyone wanted to approach the podium. Seeing none, I'll close public comment, and then I will take a motion to accept.
Second.
A motion, a second, discussion. Any discussion on, yes, Councilor Hamel.
Kudos to the bravery of the people that are trying to manage this, a group of this size and complexity, but, I think that it's probably necessary based upon, the challenge of the thing and getting broad support. So hats off to those folks. And I know they've had experience with that before, charter committees and that sort of thing. My only question is, do you have a target date in terms of when you're going to be done and this is going to be out the door, at least in front of the voters?
We do. It's the goal is to have something prepared by June 30th, 2025. So it's in time for a November 2025 referendum.
I was
So-
hoping that didn't mean a June election, so.
No, correct. It's something that can be put through the council and Board of Education processes in order to make it for a November 2025 ballot. So they have a lot of hard work in front of them. It is their charge. They are going to have to move rapidly with the consultants, but I believe they'll have a lot of hands on deck, and B, a good team. Hopefully they'll assemble on the professional side that will get them to a point to make a recommendation to this council and to the school board.
Thank you. Good plan.
Yeah. Yes, Council Shu.
So I want to thank Nick and April for all their hard work. I'm curious who will be the liaisons once you guys leave, but I guess that's up for debate. I do appreciate all the time and effort that everyone has put into this. I personally do not feel that the membership of the committee would be effective at working with town council, and I will not be supporting this tonight.
Thank you. And just for full disclosure, the intent is to, for tonight's purposes, appoint April and I, knowing full well that I will be resigning from it on November 6th, and then the new council as comprised can figure out who the two counselors that you'd like to send. So, you all set, Councilor Hamel? I didn't know if that was a hand up. No. Any other discussion? All in favor of accepting? Opposed? Show that as 6-1. Thank you very much. Next is an act on the request to approve findings in order on the denial of the following cannabis establishment licenses. Hung Do DBA Platinum Smoke LLC located at 3 Commercial Road number 201B, and Joseph Tran DBA Shark Tank Strategies located at 3 Commercial Road 201A. So just for a little background on that, this is not uncommon when we have a denial. We want to state it just for the public record, our findings of fact, just because we may end up in a situation where we have to defend the decision that was made here. So with that, findings in order were helped drafted by staff and by legal counsel. I do, just for the record, want to disclose there's one spot in here on the conclusion section on page 2. The last statement says, based on the foregoing findings and conclusions outlined above, the motion to deny the cannabis establishment license from Hung Do DBA Platinum Smoke LLC located at 3 Commercial Road 21B and Joseph Tran DBA Shark Tank Strategies located at 3 Commercial Run 201A passed on a 6-1 vote. I did want to administratively say that it wasn't a motion to deny. It was a motion to approve the license, failed to garner support, and the vote was 1-6. So just the inverse statement. It was not a motion to deny. It was a motion to approve the license, which failed. Okay. Just a clarification on that.
Yep.
But the rest of it has been reviewed as far as I know and seems to be in order. We do have opportunity for public comment on this. If anyone would like to approach the podium, please welcome to speak. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion.
Can you
Councilor.
please just clarify one more time what the vote would mean, and in this case, with the revised wording that you proposed?
This, the finding facts of order, just in general, what we're saying is, oh, are you talking about the last part that I read? It's printed up in here that we actually made a motion to deny. A motion to deny was never made. It was a motion to approve the license that failed. So it was the inverse. So it would read that the motion to approve the cannabis establishment license failed on a 1-6 vote.
So we would, if we want that to stand, if the failed action, we would vote in favor of this.
Yes.
Correct.
Accepting the attorney's recommendation.
Yeah, you're really approving the entire findings in order. We're going to make an adjustment on the conclusion that reports accurately the vote that was held that night.
Yeah, just to be clear, this is not a reconsideration of your vote. Your vote, the council took stands. This is a restating of it, really to clarify and provide concrete findings in support of your decision.
Councilor Caterina.
Do we have to formally amend this finding to make that correction?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, again, your vote is a matter of record. You approved it in your minutes or earlier this evening. I think it was, I would chalk that up to be a scrivener's error that it simply was stated incorrectly.
Cause I would hate to see it hang anything up. that's
I
all.
think by this public comment by the
Okay.
chair and consideration by the councils is sufficient.
Any other discussion, comments? No? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Show that is unanimous. Thank you. We are on to non-action items, which I might finally have a reason to use this category.
No.
We have here
Oh, no.
a very pretty plaque that reads, I'm actually happy I got to use the non-action items category. I was forever looking at that thing, going, what do we do with this? We have here a plaque that reads to Jean Marie Caterina in recognition and appreciation for your 10 years of outstanding and dedicated service to the town of Scarborough as a member of the Scarborough Town Council. So this is on the behalf of the town. I'm gonna take it out of the box, or do you want to
Yeah.
unwrap it? Because I think you should hold it up and get a picture.
Yeah.
But
Let me
we
get a
did-
picture of you giving it.
There you go.
Where do you want?
Front of the flag.
In front of the American flag. eh?
But I, Tom, do you want to join us, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah, you should, Tom. Yeah.
I look very official.
Yeah, we're in between rows.
That big crowd makes it all.
Thank you very much. guys. Speech, yeah, I got a speech to say. Make of my comment.
This isn't gonna be another filibuster, is it?
No. That was then. This is now. I got one too now. I was given a gavel.
Did you want the box for safekeeping? or-
Yes, please. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. No, I'm gonna cry. But anyway, I'll try not to. I came in with the plovers and I'm leaving with the plovers, so.
Taking it with you?
And I love the plovers. I love walking on Ferry Beach and I get all excited when they first come and I frequently call Tom and say, hey, Tom, the plovers are here. But it's been the honor of my life to serve the people of Scarborough. I started in 2013 and have witnessed firsthand all of the changes in town. As I mentioned, I started with plovers and the dogs. That was when I came in. And I'm now ending with the plovers and the terns. I've seen over my time, obviously property taxes and stabilizing property taxes as best we can. I think we've done a darn good job in town. The downs, growing pains, conservation, beaches, Piper Shores, fireworks, beaches again, cannabis, taxes. I've seen it all and I will miss it all. Please know that I will still be representing all of you as the county commissioner for District 1. So I will be representing Scarborough, Gorham, I gotta do this with my fingers, Scarborough, Gorham, Standish, Sebago, Bridgeton, and I'm missing one in there, Baldwin. How can I forget Baldwin? They're very small. So I will be representing all the folks of those towns. Starting January 1st, please know that I care about what happens. And my phone number hasn't changed, so feel free to pick up the phone and call me. But again, thank you all for everything. Appreciate it.
I want to just, I want to quickly add that Counselor Katerina is what I would consider the biggest surprise of my service here to the community. There was probably no hiding the fact that I don't think either of us liked each other very
No.
much going into this. But I'm going to tell you something. This is why you don't burn a bridge and you don't write people off, because what I found out was that you can talk to her, you can find compromise with her, you can work with her, and she is a hell of a worker. And I am glad I had the opportunity to A, get to know you better, and B, serve with you, and C, get some stuff done. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
And so again, you were certainly the biggest surprise of my learning experience here on the council. And I'm going to take your phone number and I'm going to call you, and it's just going to happen. So I do appreciate everything you've given this town. I know that length of service, the amount of time, the amount of phone calls, the amount of emails, you got to have a big heart to do it. And, you know, you got one of the biggest ones out there. So
Thank you.
Jean Marie,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, we're on to standing and special committee reports and liaison reports. And I'm going to bundle that with counselor comments. So Counselor Anderson.
Yes, so as Tom alluded to, finance worked really hard right to the wire. And so at the next meeting, we will have, we move forward the TIF or the TIF amendments for our TIF policy so that it includes what to do for affordable housing. And so I want to thank SEDCO, the Housing Alliance staff for working through that with the committee. We also, in the committee, moved forward amendments to the fiscal policy that'll be coming forward that I've shared in other council updates, so I won't go into those. We also spent a lot of time looking at some modeling in support of the council goal to look at our large capital projects. I would say my conclusion from that exercise was whatever scenario we decide to do in terms of when we time large capital projects, that the town is in a good position at least to meet our financial metrics that our credit rating agencies look at. So it really comes down to choice in terms of timing. There is some slight risk that I think is manageable as it relates to one of our metrics around debt as a percent of expenditures. So there would be a few years where we would be, you know, right at that 15% mark, which is above our policy. And then there would be a couple of years, no matter what we do in terms of timing, because of the size of this debt, that we would probably have a couple years over that our typical 3% goal. So again, all of those are important things to consider more as we go forward, because again, this was what the model showed, but in the conversation, there was a lot of things around what we can do to try and mitigate that, that again, I think could get us maybe well within our goals. So again, I think there's still work to be done. We have a Counselor Corner live around this topic. Sorry to steal your thunder. That will, you know, we'll get some more engagement from the public on the conversation of timing, which was really the part that we talked a little bit about in the Finance Committee meeting. For long range, we met last week, and a couple things I took away from that. One, the RF zone needs a lot of work in terms of better delineating different parts of Scarborough where we have the RF zone. What's on the other side of 95 and what's on this side really aren't one and the same. And I know that's something that Autumn's brought up, that we need to kind of start to really look at those separately and maybe define things a little bit differently. So that was something that I learned in that forum that I think could be a discussion for council in terms of goals for next year, or a focus of the committee at least. The other thing that was discussed was the LI district that I know we're all aware of, that, you know, there's been some concerns by the residents. And so at least in this first conversation with the committee, they talked about potentially changing parts of the zone back to RF, adding language that's currently exists in our Running Hill Road zoning around water and sewer, and then also removing certain uses that are in there today, namely trucking terminals and cannabis cultivation. So the committee will be continuing to explore those. And so I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware. Again, it would go through the normal process, long range ordinance, then come to the council. So it's probably a few months before this would actually come before the council. With that, the residents are requesting that we do consider a moratorium while the ordinance is going through that process. So I just ask the council to consider that and think if that's something we would want to pursue while this ordinance goes through those changes. And then lastly, I just want to say similarly, thank you, Councilor Katerina, for everything in the past 4 years. I think the theme might be, I'm with Nick in that, you know, if, as I shared before, like anybody told me that we would be as close and as good partners as we were. I probably would have thought they were kidding. And again, I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to work with you, learn from you. Rarely ever actually fight with you, but you know, once in a while, but then you usually put me in my place and we're good. So I just really appreciate everything that you've done. I'm looking forward to you being at the county. Hopefully you can help make sure that we're getting our money's worth and the taxes we pay back to the county, and make sure that we're getting good services as those go up. And so I'm just really appreciative and proud to have partnered with you.
Thank you.
Counselor Shu.
So Jean Marie, can you now volunteer for our boards?
Yes.
All right, I'm looking forward to seeing your application.
Okay, thank you.
I will just say I've enjoyed serving with you. It's only been 2 years, but I've known you for years. And so it's just so nice to come onto the council and have someone that I knew, who I feel is a good role model, and has provided a role model as someone who is opinionated, but you can get out there and speak eloquently and speak your opinion, but also represent the residents very well. You're going to be greatly missed. So the Appointments and Negotiations Committees did meet last week, and we have some recommendations for the council. So for Coastal Waters and Harbor Advisory Committee, we're recommending to move Rob Odlin from first alternate to full voting member with a term to expire in 2026. Move Tyler Davis from a second alternate to a first alternate with a term to expire in 2025. And we're recommending to appoint Brittany Jackson as a second alternate with a term to expire in 2026. On the Conservation Commission, we're recommending to appoint Kate Borduas as the second alternate with a term to expire in 2026. The Community Services Rec Advisory Board, we're recommending to appoint Darrell Wright as the second alternate with a term to expire in 2025. Long Range Planning, we're recommending to appoint Mark Simpson to the first alternate position with a term to expire in 2024. Planning Board, we're recommending to move Bennett Flanders from the second alternate to the first alternate with a term to expire in 2026, and appoint Rudy Karen as the second alternate with a term to expire in 2024. And lastly, on the Shellfish Commission, we're recommending to appoint Andy Blanchard as a full voting member with a term to expire in 2026. Jason Quirk is a full voting member with a term to expire in 2025. And Eric Quirk is a first alternate with a term to expire in 2026. And then lastly, just one of the comments I wanted to make was, because this was actually an event that I benefited from last year, is that the Project Grace with the library is doing Snug It Up Against next November 14th. Or 15th, they actually have a bunch of free products where like you can like seal up your windows, and they give you a bunch of hints and things like that. I went last year, walked away with like all these different things to seal up my old leaky house. So I'll bring this up again, but I recommend stopping by the library on Friday, November 15th for it.
Thank you. Counselor Seiler.
I just want to start by giving kudos to Jamie Fitch, our sustainability coordinator, for a hugely successful Sustainable Scarborough Day. She was gifted again this year with a beautiful weather day. The event has grown and continues to thrive under her leadership. It was an amazing way to spend 4 hours. There was tons of community members there. There was lots of activities for kids. There were delicious food trucks. There was great music. And it was just a really excellent community hosted event. And so I hope that people learned a lot and took away a lot of great information. And our staff did an amazing job. And to the other senior staff members who spent most of the day there as well, thank you. And thank you for representing the town and doing such important work. For Communications Committee, we are in great shape to make sure that we are covered for Counselor Corner articles through early December. John Anderson has volunteered to write our November 15th article, and then we'll use our December 1st article to introduce our new council members. As John mentioned, we are planning on hosting one more Counselor Corner Live before the end of the year. It is scheduled for Wednesday, October 30th at 6 p.m. here in Council Chambers. And the topic will be prioritizing our priorities. I think members of the community are really eager and excited to talk about our capital improvement projects and our capital improvement plan. And so hopefully we'll draw a lot of engagement to that Counselor Corner Live. And then to Jean Marie. Thank you for mentoring me, and thank you for your friendship. And I certainly hope that you will continue to call me at all hours of the day. I will continue to answer the phone amidst the chaos that is my house. And I just want to sincerely thank you for your service, because It's very much appreciated.
Any other council? Yeah, Councilor Cushing.
Yes, couple of things. Unfinished communication business was new counselor orientation. What I think we have provided to Tom and Liam stuff that you had before, a piece that we inherited from Karen and information that I put together, and that. So I hope that we can do that, pull something together. I also would hope that we could figure out a way to welcome the new counselors to the group. I think that there is a benefit to, I think, the new parlance is onboarding but joining, and so I think we could benefit from that. And that is a bridge to my gratitude for Jean Marie, who I think was quick to explain to me the way things work around here. And I don't, I regret that, I haven't had that opportunity for as many as my colleagues, but the small dose I had was enough. No.
Right, that was pretty good.
And, all right, and the last piece of unfinished business that was important to me is on the finance committee, where sort of began a quest to say, can we do something about the way we present the finances and the budget to make them a little bit more understandable to the layperson. And Tom and Norman Lee and I have had some discussions about that. And so I'm hoping that we can pick that ball up and continue. And which time do I have left? Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cushing. Councilor Hand.
Yeah, I, last but not least, as sort of like a soulmate and a seatmate here with Jean Marie for the, seems like a long time. That empty chair is going to loom large, no question, even if it's just for a week or so for me. But I have really enjoyed working with Jean Marie. People ask me, how can you work with her? And I think people have said all the reasons why. I mean, she is a good collaborator. She has great knowledge and experience. And she, I especially look back at the 18 months we spent adopting the cannabis ordinances. And it just worked really well. We're bouncing ideas back and forth. She's a font of knowledge. And the fact that she's devoted a decade of her life to town council work, I mean, that's enormous. And what's happened in that time and what's happened to the town. I mean, it's a totally different place. And she's left a mark on it. So we'll miss you. And but however, you can run, but you can't hide. And we know you're going to be dispersing funds to us. So we'll look forward to working with you in the future. And I will make good on my commitment to buy you lunch. I want to see that fancy new office with the high ceilings, at City Hall. So thanks very much and good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just for comments, I mean, there's a lot that's been said already, but I think this is our last meeting before we have a pretty big election in front of us. So to all of our candidates here locally that are running, good luck. Get out there, knock on those doors, talk to those people. That's how it works. And then for anyone at home, please get out and vote. It's a huge part of what we do here. It really matters. So go out and make a difference. And then I don't have a whole lot else to add, except for I would like Jean Marie to drop the hammer one last time.
With my new.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Sure that is adjourned? Thank you, Jean Marie.
Thank you, everybody.